everyone, and welcome back to the Bliss Bakery, where you'll get your wholesome slice of life. Welcome to today's episode, which I've titled The Realisation of Aging. So I feel like my life has been operating on repeat lately for 2024, and it's pretty crazy how quick things are flying by. I feel like the last couple of months have just been work and then stress about work, and then I will try and go for a run because I'm trying to get my fitness up a little bit now that I'm not playing as many sports as before. Then go home, cook dinner, eat dinner, watch Netflix until it's late, and then sleep and wake up and repeat. And then you get to the weekend and you kind of do bits and bobs and just like house chores, go out with friends, have a brunch out, whatever it is. And the weekend just flies by. And then you're back to Monday and it all starts all over again. So I've been thinking about this a lot recently and how fast just everything seems to be flashing by. It also just feels like it keeps speeding up. Like every year, time flies. It's already mid-October. I literally swore last week it was beginning of October. Yeah, it's made me reflect quite a bit in terms of just thinking about the past and when I was a kid. And I have my birthday, and that would be the most exciting time of the year. And then after that day, I'd be like, oh man, there's another year that I have to wait until my next birthday. Like I literally can't wait until my next birthday. And now it just kind of feels like January at the beginning of this year was not that far away. Like we got through January and then suddenly it was April. And then, I don't know, I guess like some stuff happened and now it's October. And in 3 months' time, it's going to be my birthday again. What I've started to realize is that time is relative to your experience. And as we grow older, time or the passing of time becomes a much smaller piece of our lives. And what I mean in this way is when you're a baby, you've literally been born for minutes, hours, whatever it is. When you have a newborn baby in their first couple of weeks, you don't really want them to just be crying by themselves for even a minute, because for that baby, a minute will feel like forever. Like that is years to them in the perspective of how long they've lived. And so by that point, they end up feeling this sense of abandonment, even though to you it's literally like, come on, man, that's a minute. And now if we think about a minute in having lived like years and years, it's kind of like a minute is what I wait when I'm trying to heat up my food or when I'm waiting for my onions to fry. It's just so quick. It's literally like that. Like it's negligible. And I guess that's the same when it comes to years, because when I was 12, a year was 1/12 of my life. And now it's 1/27th. And so relatively, a year passing in time is much, much less noticeable or meaningful in a way to us as we get older, because we've lived so many of them now that it just seems quick in comparison. Why I guess I'm reflecting on this is because I definitely feel like I'm at this stage where I noticeably am starting to feel older. I know it sounds a bit ridiculous because I'm in my 20s and there's so many years ahead, but I do feel like there's something about the moment where you turn 27 that things just start speeding up a bit too quickly, and it kind of terrifies me. Maybe it's because every 7 years you're technically a new person because our cells are regenerating, and I think it's like it takes a 7-year cycle for all of your cells to be like totally regenerated from the 7 years prior. And so you're this entirely new person when you're 7 to when you're 14 to 21 to 28, etc. And right now, I'm literally on the cusp of that. Like, I am about to become a new person. And I think it's not just this physical cell regeneration, but there also is something in your mentality that starts to shift as well. And I'm really taking a step back to recognize those changes, and sometimes recognizing spirals into anxiety, but also it's a bit of an appreciation and trying to figure out, okay, I have these feelings of being scared. Now what? When you're younger, you never really think about that feeling of getting older. You feel like you're this young immortal, like you're frozen in time. Life is never going to change from this feeling of, being active, going and hanging out with your friends, looking the way that you look. And then suddenly you just hit this age and you're like, actually, I'm living life and life is changing and I'm not going to stay this way forever. So let's talk about some of those changes you do notice when you start getting older. The top of my list is, you're old when you stop looking forward to your birthdays. Because when I was a kid, like I said, I just remember being so excited for every birthday. I've started to shift towards that mindset where I don't want to make a big deal out of my birthday because I almost dread it coming every year, because that means I'm a year older now. I'm a year closer to my 30s or closer to now. It's this feeling of, gosh, the year is passing so fast. Like when I have my birthday, another 2 months flies by and then it's going to be my birthday again soon. Like, how do I slow down time and not get to that point again so soon? I think another sign of when you're starting to feel older is when you start noticing these very, very fine wrinkles on your face or on your body. You would be the first person to notice it for sure. Like, I don't think that other people look as closely at your face as you do. For example, for myself, I've started really noticing these just like smile lines, fine eye wrinkles, all these sorts of things on my face where I'm like, oh, like they're coming and I really want to preserve how I look right now. And so I'm being much more conscious in terms of making sure that I apply moisturizer or what kind of serums should I start looking into, and being really conscious about how or the way I move my face or how I sleep so that I don't make them worse. Another one that I probably felt a few years ago now is you realize you're getting old when you start noticing that the reality stars on TV are all younger than you. Because when I was younger, I would watch reality TV like Big Brother or The Amazing Race, or nowadays it's more like Love Island and Too Hot to Handle. And I would always look at these people and be like, wow, these are grown-ups. And now when you watch it, you're literally like, these people are babies. Like, they're 21 or whatever. I don't know what that stage was when you just suddenly started surpassing the age of these reality stars. Like, I feel like if I wanted to go on reality TV at some stage, not that I do, but hypothetically, I couldn't anymore. Like, I'm past that age limit where it makes sense for you to. And so that's where you start to realize, oh man, I am getting to a different stage in my life now. I also think related to that, you start relating to parents in TV shows or movies more than you do the kids. Because again, when you're a kid, you're watching this, you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, like the kid's right. Parents are so annoying, blah, blah, blah. Or like, I think I've seen a lot of people say in The Parent Trap, for example, Meredith, I think, was like 27. And when you were a kid watching her, she's the wicked stepmother. She's this evil person, adult. And now a lot of people are saying like they relate to her because you kind of get it at this point. You just have this mindset where you can empathize way more with someone who is older than the kids, and you're suddenly like, wow, these kids are so immature. Like, I feel so sorry for this older person in the movie. So that was my list of things I think you start noticing as you get older. I'm wondering if there's anything else that you've experienced, and if you have any of these thoughts, drop them in the comments because I'm really keen to hear them. Now, when we're talking about aging, I think we can break it down into two things. There is one, the physical aging aspect, and then there's two, the mental aging. And I think both of these are really important to address and just reflect a bit on. So I'm going to start with physical aging because I feel like that's the one that's been spiraling me a little bit more in the last couple of months. So I think there's a few early signals when you start to physically age. So the first sign that I've started noticing is wrinkles, and I've really started to care about them. It definitely scares me because it's something that I never thought about very much, but it's this very, very subtle change, and then you start obsessing over it. So I have started noticing, for example, smile line wrinkles and neck wrinkles is a big one. And I'm like, where did these ever come from? And why is it now that I'm looking at it, it just keeps getting deeper and deeper? It's resulted in me trying to create these new skincare routines to make sure that I'm really addressing them now. Whereas when you didn't see them before or notice them, you didn't really care. You're kind of like, that's not my problem, whatever about prevention. I'm just going to go in the sun. I'm going to play Oztag all day and not wear any sunscreen. And now I am reaping the effects of that. So I've started looking at things more seriously, like sunscreen and moisturizer and having a skincare routine. I guess this is an experience that a lot of women can relate to, is that you really start investing in more serums and caring about your skin and trying to keep it as frozen in time as you can for as long as you can, because there is this stigma or scariness around just becoming this wrinkled person and looking old, and how society then views you is different. The second physical thing you notice is metabolism and maintaining your weight. And I think this is a very typical one where when you're younger, you can just eat whatever you want and you kind of worry like, oh, I'm getting fat and all this stuff. But in reality, your weight is pretty well maintained. Whereas now I start feeling like I have to do a lot of exercise and intentional fitness, and I do have to start thinking about what I'm eating and what the macros are in order for me to even just maintain my weight. Like, it's not even losing weight at this point. I'm like, I just don't want to keep gaining weight. The third one that I haven't experienced just yet, but I am absolutely dreading, is white hair. And I know some people get it really young and it's just genetic, but I do think that stress contributes a lot to getting your white hairs, and stress is often experienced by life experiences that you have, and the older that you get, the more real shit gets. So I am quite worried about starting to see like my first white hairs, because then I know like that's probably a sign that, you're going through a lot of stress and you're getting older. So yeah, these are the physical aspects that really scare me because they represent change in our lives and in who we are. And to be honest, right now, I would say I'm probably the happiest with my appearance that I've ever been, because I'm at this stage where I feel like my physical appearance is only just starting to change, but my mental maturity towards my appearance has improved leaps and bounds. So I'm not as insecure as I used to be about how I look, and I definitely feel like I'm much more accepting of just who I am and what I have to work with. And so right now, I feel like I look good and I'm really happy with it. But because I'm starting to sense these small, subtle signs of change, I'm like, no, wait, slow down. Like, let's live this out a little bit longer. I just want some more time to experience this point where I feel really happy with my appearance. So then I think about getting older, and I do get this sadness that you don't get that same level of appreciation of your appearance from the society around you, because we even hear it in our language these days. When you talk about someone who is younger and really attractive, you'll say, oh my gosh, he or she, they're so good looking, they're so hot. But when you apply that same appreciation to someone who is older, you'll tend to say, you look so good for your age, or you look at least 10 years younger than you are, those sorts of things. And so it starts to make you just think, well, yes, you can continue to look good and feel good about yourself as you get older, but the reality is that it's not really that same experience anymore. I'm also starting to realize that as I talk through this physical aging aspect, there's probably a lot deeper that I need to dig into in terms of caring so much about external validation and what people around me and what public think, because that seems to clearly influence my perspective a lot. And yeah, maybe that's something to dig into in a future episode, or maybe that's something just to dig into in therapy and not in the podcast. Let's move on and let's talk a little bit more about the mental aspect of growing up. Aging is for sure not just a physical thing. There is a big, big mental aspect to aging as well. One thing I notice is you realize you are the adult in the room. When you're younger and you don't know what to do, you're like, it's fine, let's trust the adults. Adults will know what to do in any situation. Like everything's going to be okay. Whereas now sometimes you're in situations and you're like, I don't know what to do. Where are the adults? And you're like, me. That's me. I need to know what to do. And I still don't entirely feel like I have that adult mentality where I'm confident and I'm like, okay, I know how to resolve this situation. Nobody worry, I've got this. I'm like, maybe it really is all of us are just living lives for our first time and we're all just trying to figure things out. And people aren't super confident, but maybe as adults we have a bit more experience to rely on, or we just kind of know that you're thrown in the deep end, there's people relying on you and you just need to do something. I think as well as you are in the workforce, you start to build more and more of this cynicism and you lose, unfortunately, a little bit of that spark in work. I guess except for the select few who find something that they're really, really passionate in, because the reality is for the most of us, when we're grads and we're just entering the workforce, it's something new and you're so eager to impress and you want to partake in all these extracurricular activities and really go above and beyond. So you bring this young grad energy to the team and people, it's very infectious actually, because people get excited around you as well. And I definitely felt that way when I was a grad. I was so eager to impress and I was so keen to take on anything that would uplift the team, like bonding activities, no problem, I got that. Things that people didn't want to do, running a meeting, yes, I will do this, yes, yes, yes. And now as you get older, you start to feel like I think you notice two things. One is if you do all of these extracurricular activities, it is a booster for the team, but it doesn't really help you that much in your career. There are certain things where people will like you a lot for it, but you don't really, there's not much you can say on a promo pack. Like, oh, I organized a bunch of these team bonding events. It's kind of like, great, well, that is a plus for you, but it's not going to influence a promo panel's decision over someone who did some high impact project and were really driving that. So you start to realize where you need to focus your energies. And then the second is you also start viewing life outside of work a little bit more importantly. And yes, you could be throwing yourself into this work and doing all these things, like working on the high impact projects as well as all the extracurricular stuff. But you start to realize, well, is that where I want to be spending my time? Like, do I really care? What is the amount that I should be putting into work versus where I can put my energy into just other parts of my life? And that becomes this realization that life is just full of trade-offs. Like, you can do everything, but you are sacrificing something. And you start to realize those opportunity costs more and more. And I think that's where some of the cynicism starts to build in, is because you start viewing work as what it is, which is work. And you start prioritizing other things in your life outside of that, such as your family or your relationships and your friends and your health. And that's where you start to view things quite cynically as well, in terms of, they want me to join this social event that is happening after work. I don't want to do that. Like, I want to go out with my friends and I want to just chill at home or do my own thing. Like, why am I spending time outside of work on work? I think you definitely lose a little bit of that spark of just throwing yourself fully into something and not really thinking about the other aspects of your life. And I realize some of this is also because you increase responsibilities and you have to start thinking about all these things that adults have to consider. Things like, I need time to do my groceries. I need to think about mortgages. I need to think about taxes. I need to think about budget. And I need to think about scheduling my dentist appointment because my mom's not going to do that for me anymore. And so you have all of these additional things that you need to consider and responsibilities in your life where if you're not doing that, then nobody else is telling you to do that, especially if you've moved out. So it definitely is this feeling of just more and more things that are weighing on your mind that take away a little from that youthful excitement and joy of life. I also realized that you start getting very, very excited about homewares and furniture. I used to look at those shops and be like, why would I ever go? Who shops in there? What? It's so boring. And now I look at a furniture shop and I think, oh my gosh, I wonder what all the treasures are that could be in there. Or the other day, we went to Victoria's basement for the first time, and I've never been interested in kitchenware or homewares or just things like that. And when I went in, I was like, wow, I'm introduced to a whole new world here. There is so much cool stuff in here and I'm so excited. And I walked around and took all these photos of things to show them to Lucas because I'd be like, oh, do we need this for home? Do we need this kitchen drainer? Do we need this cleaner? Do we need, I don't know, like a soap dispenser? When you're a kid, you don't think about those things. And so definitely your interests and your shopping habits change as well, because now I go in store for clothes shopping. I could spend hours and hours doing that when I was a teenager. But now I'm like, okay, 5 minutes and I'm out because you know what? I don't really need anything. Or you're like, okay, I'm wasting time shopping. I need to be doing other things. So yeah, definitely your mentality on just shopping and your approach on like what you're interested in buying also is different. But I think on the bright side, you definitely build a lot more confidence as you mentally mature and you start feeling just this inner sense of acceptance of yourself, which I think is really nice. And even in the workforce where I definitely feel a lot more confident in my abilities and you start shedding that imposter syndrome because you've proven yourself again and again with experience and you start to feel like, hey, I think I can actually do this. I think I know how to approach this. I don't know the answers still, and sometimes I don't know what anyone's talking about, but I'm kind of like, you know what? I think I have a good mental framework at least to get through this and start finding answers. So I think that's nice. Okay, so one other aspect of when it comes to aging and your mentality is how your relationship with your family evolves. I definitely think you start to appreciate time with your family and your siblings much, much more as you get older. And you develop this understanding for them as well and the way that they do things and why they are the way that they are. I feel like I experienced this after I moved out because I realized I wouldn't be seeing them every day anymore. And that made me feel like intentional time spent with family was more important than ever. And just trying to make sure I kept seeing them every week. I've seen this graph, I think it's on TikTok, where it shows the time spent with people in your life. And as you get older, that point from moving out, the time that you spend with your parents and your family decreases exponentially. And that is something I think about a lot. these are the most important people in your life, and you want to make sure that you are still staying close with them. And for them, you are the most important people in their lives as well. So it is important to not just fork and forget like the 20 odd years that you've spent together. I think I really start to worry about this because you realize that as time passes and I'm starting to see my parents less frequently, or even my siblings, that there isn't infinite time, and you don't want to have any regrets over time. And it's not just about regrets, but it is really about making the most of the time that you have with the people in your life now. And with my parents and my grandparents especially, that is really, really important for me. When you're a kid, they are such a big part of your lives, and you don't really think about anything happening because you're still young, and the concept of death is really not that formed to you. And so you kind of think of it and you're like, oh yeah, that's the thing that happens. But it just gets more and more real as you get older. Honestly, it gives me so much anxiety. Like, I think about that moment and I will tear up. I will feel so stressed. I can't imagine what life would be like, or even going on without them, because these are the people who literally were with you when you were born. Like, they raised you, they made you who you are today. And yeah, I think this is just a reminder, everyone, in case you haven't been thinking about it lately, but like, go see your parents, go see your grandparents, go tell them that you love them, go and spend time with them. And it's not just like going to see them and sitting there on your phone for hours, but actually talk to them, because you might not have that much time after to ask questions that you never knew the answers to. And for me, I feel like it's extra stressful at this point in your life as you get older, because you realize that the stress never stops from here on out. First, for the next, I'm hoping at least 10 years, for the next set of years, the first worry is about your grandparents. And after that, then you're kind of like, okay, well, then my parents. Then after that, my siblings, and then me. Like, and that's life. That's literally it. So it feels like once you've had this realization, it's this never-ending worry of losing the next person in your life as you get older. Because when you're young, you don't really face that. You don't really have someone at that point yet that you're about to lose. And so that is one of the scariest things to me as I'm getting older. Like, forget the physical aging, the mental aging, whatever it is. Like, this is the thing that I really, really think about all the time. So I guess in true spirit of this podcast, we've done the bit where we've spiraled. Now, maybe we can spend a little bit of time thinking about, how do we cope with this? How do we make this all better? Or at least have some ways to address how we think about this? I think there are two big things for your mindset as you have this realization of aging. The first is the importance of mindfulness and living in the present. And I feel like I harp on about this all the time. I'm pretty sure I talked about this in my last podcast episode as well. But I really feel like it's about living every second of your present life and every moment that you are currently in. I have this really nice thought here where if we live too much in the past, we waste time dwelling about a time you can never return to. If we live too in the future, we waste time being anxious about what might happen. So we need to live in the present, as this is the only moment that is real. So for sure, I think that if you're stuck in the past, you kind of spiral into this depression because you can't do anything about the past. You only live a life of regret then. If you're thinking about the future and the unknowns all the time, or planning for what's ahead and being anxious, that's also not a good use of time, because then you're just worried about the next thing. That's probably my biggest problem. And that's where you start obviously feeling like time is speeding by. And living in the present is the only way that you can just slow life down and appreciate every single moment that you are actually in. So it's almost like, Deep breath right now. I am literally in this present moment, making a podcast, enjoying talking and just dumping my thoughts and creating something. And that is just really nice. Like, that's a really nice experience in life. I also think a lot about this notion that when you're 30, you reminisce on being 20 and you wish that you were 20 again and you were young and, you had a different figure. But when you're 40, you then think about when you're 30 and you didn't have as many wrinkles and you were more lively. And when you're 50, you think about when you're 40, and when you're 60, you think about when you're 50, etc. So you could always live in this life of regret where you want to go back to that person that you were at the time, but you kind of realize that in that moment, you probably also weren't that happy because you were thinking about the past you. And that hits me really hard because it makes me think, you know what? I am never going to be as wrinkle free or as fit as I am right now compared to maybe in 10 years' time. So I should just enjoy the way that I am right now and really appreciate this moment because I don't want to get to that point where, I'm 20 years from now and I'm looking back and I feel like, oh man, I was actually really hot back then, but I didn't feel that way in this moment because this moment had me thinking about how hot I was 10 years ago. So it really is a lot of reminding myself that I can only enjoy who I am, what I am right now in the present, and that just know that in the future, I am going to envy present me. And going back to the thing that I really struggle with, which is being anxious about life ahead, I think it's actually not only about being anxious, if you can't relate to that, but it's also about living life in future hope all the time. For the people who try to work for the weekend or who try to think about just the next holiday, like living holidays at a time, I think that's also really dangerous because it means that you're just living for these moments and the rest of it in between is just blur because maybe you're not super happy or satisfied with your everyday, but you're really living for these moments of short-lived joy where I'm on a holiday, woohoo, like it's so fun, I'm having such a great time, and then I come back and I'm like, oh, when am I going to get to my next holiday? I am so bored. It's time to start planning for next year's big thing that I'm looking forward to. I think that that is what's going to speed up your life so much more because you're going to feel like the only moments worth living or enjoying are those very small pockets across your year. And maybe that is a signal to address your present and be like, how can I make my present happier or more enjoyable? Maybe if you can't change your work, it's about finding those small sparks of joy in your day-to-day life and not just in your year-to-year life. For example, sometimes if it's good weather, I just like to go outside or like ride my bike and feel the wind blowing in my face. And I'm like, wow, life is really good right now. And it's just those moments that matter to me where I have those realizations and I'm content. Like I'm not even doing anything, I'm not achieving anything, but just feeling the sun on me or feeling the wind and feeling like I'm very content in life. And I will have those thoughts where I'm like, it literally doesn't get better than this. So yeah, definitely finding those moments help you feel very present and living life by each second. Because I was stressing about this at points, I did watch an Ali Abdaal video recently where he talked about how to slow down your life. And I think what was really helpful were the 3 anchors that he talked about. So one is the anchors of novelty. So trying new things, getting change in your life. The second is anchors of reflection. So spending a little bit more time really thinking about, what did I do today? What did I enjoy? Journaling it down or just taking more photos so you can reflect on those moments rather than them just passing by. And then the third is your anchors of mindfulness, where it is intentional time of just sitting, breathing, feeling the things around you. I'm really bad at mindfulness and meditation and yoga and those sorts of things. But I do find a helpful practice is literally just experiencing your five senses around you, like taking a minute or two to just think about, what can I see? List 5 things I can see around me. If I close my eyes, what can I hear? Because there's layers of sound that you can hear. What can I smell? What can I taste? What can I feel? And you start to get this very clear sense of grounding in your environment around you, which I do feel like is quite a good form of mindfulness that helps you appreciate the present. Okay, so those were all the things around living in the now. The second helpful mentality that I've been trying to instill in myself more and more is cultivating this gratitude for the life experiences that contribute to aging. So, really actually appreciating that you are aging and thinking about it in this positive light. The first obvious thing is, if you're not aging, what is the alternative? Literally, I don't want the alternative. So I guess this is the only way forward, right? That's definitely a good way to ground my anxiety, because I'm kind of like, you know what? This is literally just life and this is the way that it goes. And the other option is way worse. So let's just go with this one. I think there's also this reminder that every line on your face or every white hair, every physical aspect of aging just represents some experience in your life. The lines on your face, for example, your smile lines, they experience moments of happiness or moments of just joy in your life. And so it's more about, I guess, hinging on those experiences as a battle scar for what you've gone through than thinking of them superficially. And I think that the only other thing is that worrying about these things just accelerates the process. And Lucas always reminds me of this, because you'll catch me sometimes now if I'm laughing, I'm like trying to hold my line in place because I'm like, oh, I don't want it to get deeper. And he'll be like, don't touch it. Don't touch your face because that's actually going to make it worse. And I think that's really true, because what you're doing is like, you're so conscious of it. You're always touching these parts of your face, and you're just irritating them more, antagonizing them more. And so I think that the more that you just kind of stress-free, live your life, live in the moment, the aspects of aging will slow down a lot more. I think that that is my reflections and thoughts on the process of aging and the realization of aging, its mental and its physical aspects, the relationship with your family, and how we can start bringing a more positive light to it. It's not a fun thing to go through, but if you did relate, I hope that we went through this journey together and we can continue to support each other in reminding ourselves of these healthier mindsets. Yeah, let me know what you thought about this. Do you have similar fears to me? How are you dealing with them? Maybe we can talk through it together. And I'll see you next time. Bye.